When you and I started our businesses, think about what the number one problem was.
If you understand why you're supposed to be doing something and what the intention is and what the purpose of what you're doing is, then the tactics are really easy.
What is the actual core problem of all problems that causes a law firm to not grow?
Why does advertising work? What is the psychology behind marketing? So there's lots of different things that are stacked on top. And the number one way that I've learned how to do all this is, like you said, through. What's up, man? I want to talk to you about the problem that I think is the solution to life. Like all of life's problems, I've realized, and I realize that I'm wise enough to understand this, but I'm not smart enough to use it every single time I have a problem, and that's just simplicity. Like every time in my life when something is when something just isn't working, I always my initial gut is let's make it more complicated. Let's see if we can do all this crazy stuff. And then the answer is always I'm doing too much and I just need to simplify things. So like I was working on a chat GPT prompt the other day. Actually it was yesterday. And the prompt was just it wasn't giving me the outcome that I was looking for. And I just kept adding to it and kept adding to it. I'm like, well, if this happens, this happens. And then this morning I woke up at 5:00 in the morning. I shot out of bed. I was like, oh, I know what the problem was. I should have just told it first do this, then do this, then do this. And I literally got up within 5 minutes. The entire thing was completely fixed. Same thing with our marketing right now. We're dealing with some things where some of our ads aren't working as well. Some of our funnels aren't converting as well as they should be. And the solution was let's just shut everything or shut all the extra stuff down. Let's just reduce to a few things and focus on just fixing, one or two things on those things. And then all of a sudden everything works better because, I think that as business owners, we try to do too many things and we know too much for our own good. And I think simplicity should be the theme of what we talk about because I mean, like how many law firms have you worked with where it's just like, they're just making things too complicated. And it's difficult because we do this. We're too close to the problem in our own business. Have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, I think as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking like this is the power of mentors, right? There's I don't know, millions and millions of business books that have ever been written, right? And when you are around someone with wisdom and experience, you may read this book or hear about this amazing book or concept that can change your life forever, and you talk to someone with experience and they go, yeah, really just this one chapter and this first section of this one chapter is the thing to go all in that book, right? And or like within this concept, like you're able to basically exclude 90% of the content in a book to basically go to the only 10% that actually works for your specific situation, right? And if the problem is, I think the problem is really around generalized knowledge, right? If you think about it, generalized knowledge is what the school system teaches. They want you to know a lot of different topics, just the surface level, right? They want you to know the surface level of, 15, 20, 25 different domains, right? Science, math, economics, blah, 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 right? Just a little bit within each of these things. But the problem with generalized knowledge is, and a lot of people realize this when they graduate school, is it's very hard to apply generalized knowledge to, success, growing a business, because at every chapter, you are experiencing different problems, right? So when you and I started our businesses, think about what the number one problem was. It was, I need clients, right? And okay, now at least we've gotten way more specific than the school system. Once we've identified we have one problem, get clients, right? That's one of the hard things, and that's something you say a lot, is the person who can articulate the problem is, often the person with the most credibility, because just knowing what your problem is as a person, and knowing what someone else's problem is wisdom, right? Knowing it's not this problem. It's not that you need to order business cards. It's not that you need to go create a business plan. It's not that you need to go rethink your whole business strategy. No, you just need to get clients, right? Okay, now we can say no to 99 other things. Just need to get clients. Now, the problem within that is there's 15,000 books on just that topic, maybe even 1,000,000 books just on that topic. Which book is the best? Which methodology is the best? How do you cut through all the fluff? So when you're saying like simplicity has helped you solve problems recently, what I would venture to guess is that the only way you got to simplistic thinking is through wisdom and through doing a lot of the wrong things and talking with really smart people who said, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would do this one thing. So my question to you is, how does someone get to simplistic thinking? How can they get to a point, like in the example that you shared, where you are able to break something down to one problem and one or two solutions?
Yeah, well, I think that, so it kind of comes down to I'm sure you've heard before, if you can't explain it to a fifth grader, you don't understand it, right? Which is actually a very, very good point. And what's funny is that we've had some internal training over the last couple of days with probably like 25 members of our team, right? And I did 2 different training sessions. It's our sales team, and basically we have it's broken into 2 different pieces of the team. And I did some training with one piece of the team yesterday, and I did some training with the other piece of the team the day before. And what I talked about wasn't a lot of tactics in terms of what we need to do. It was more understanding what I need them to understand is I need them to understand the principles behind what their role is as a sales team, right? Their role and like what they're trying to do. And when you understand the why behind what, so for example, if we have like a sales script, and this is for law firm owners as well, like if you have an intake team that is following a script, or if you have, really anything, if you understand why you're supposed to be doing something and what the intention is and what the purpose of what you're doing is, then the tactics are really easy, right? So like I would equate it to being a lawyer. I'm sure that in a trial, you have certain goals that you're trying to achieve. There's certain things that you're trying to disprove or that you're trying to prove, right? And if that's the case, then everything works backwards from there, because you understand why you're making this argument. You understand why you're using this piece of evidence. You understand why you're introducing, this witness or whatever it is, because at the end of the day, it's all trying to get back to this thing, right? But so the biggest thing is that you have to first understand the principles. And I think that's really the key. We have so many clients and so many lawyers that come to me and they're just like, how do I get clients? How do I get clients? How do I get clients? And they want a tactic. And I don't like giving the tactic. It's honestly, financially, it's better for us to just give the tactic, because then people are happier and we give them the thing and they go out. But I know that next time I'm not going to be there and they're not going to know why that tactic worked. Right. So what I try to do is I try to educate in terms of, well, here's the foundations of why this particular thing works. So for example, like with the ChatGPT prompt that I was talking about earlier, what the problem that I'm trying to solve right now is that our messaging in our ads is not as clear as it should be. Right now, I wouldn't know that that's the problem. I wouldn't even know that that's the problem if I didn't understand the foundations of advertising. Why does advertising work? What is the psychology behind marketing? What's the psychology behind, the behavioral psychology that goes into marketing, that translates into messaging, that translates into inspiring somebody to take the action that you're trying to get them to take, right? So, there's lots of different things that are stacked on top. And the number one way that I've learned how to do all this is, like you said, through mentors. Because, well, actually, no, 2 things. The first way is by doing it and screwing it up, right? There's no possible way I could know everything I need to do to run an ad that's going to generate leads at an affordable rate if I didn't run a lot of ads that didn't work, right? and I just screwed up and made mistakes and made mistakes and made mistakes, right? And then here's the key though. It's like a lot of times people will say like, oh, well, we didn't succeed, but we learned some lessons. Like, what lessons did you learn? Like, specifically tell me what lessons you actually learned, right? You actually have to learn some lessons from things. And a lot of times the way you learn lessons is through mentors. I used to have a mentor. The first marketing coach, or the first coach I ever really had, was this guy named Dan Henry. And Dan, if anyone knows who Dan is, Dan's a very he doesn't mince words. He's very he's not afraid to call you an idiot for something that you're doing, right? So when I started with Dan, the mastermind that I was in, basically we would go to Dan's house. We'd sit in his living room. There's like 5 of us. This is before he became a really big deal in marketing. And he had a water gun, and basically he'd pull our ads up, and then every time there was something stupid in the ad that we did, he would squirt us with the water gun. Like, it may have been a borderline abusive, but when you have somebody that's that can look at your stuff objectively, because like I'm so close to my own marketing, to my own company, that I don't see the blind sides. I don't see my blind spots, and I'm just, it's like Febreze coined the term nose blind. You go nose blind to your own house's smells, right? So he can look at something and say, why are you saying this? Just do this. Or like, we have something that's like super complicated. Like we're trying to do an opt-in and then a text message and then an email. He's like, why don't you just do this? It's so much easier, so much simpler, and it solves that problem, right? But that truly has made me a better marketer. It's making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, and then understanding not this particular thing worked or this particular thing didn't work, but having a mentor tie together as to why this worked. Because I mean, it's so cliche. It's, teach a man to fish, feed him for a day, or no, wait, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, or a woman to fish, and feed her for a lifetime, right? Because it's the principles. It's okay. I can sit here and give you a fish, or I can teach you that, okay, well, the reason that you're catching fish in the morning is because the salmon are swimming this way because it's colder in this part of the lake. But if it's in the afternoon, the sun's coming up, it's a little warmer. They don't like warm water, so they go over here. So you actually need to move over here. And it's the same thing, right? You just have to understand why. But the most difficult way to get that why is to figure it out on your own. The easiest way to do it is to have somebody walk you through and show you what you're doing wrong. Not even just listening to what they're doing. Is you do it, so you get the actions and you get the repetitions, and then understanding why it didn't work and having somebody actually break it down from a principle level. And that's the simplicity that I'm talking about, is that we always have to go back to the simplicity, to the fundamentals. But if you don't know the fundamentals, because you didn't actually, find the mentors that can show them to you and put a little bit of time and effort into actually figuring it out, then you really can't go back to the fundamentals, because you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know is the problem.
Yeah, I think to our current product plan that we're running on as a company right now, we're always improving our products and services, but think about how complex our product plan was before we rolled out that new plan that we just created. If you know what I'm talking about, that Excel spreadsheet that breaks down the 5 priorities, right? What we realized is that in our business, we're in the business growth business, right? So in our business, our job is to grow law firms, either their revenues, their profits, or their freedom. And we realized that there are principles that will never change that make lawyers happy with our services, right? Number 1 was determined as product alignment, right? This basically means that the product that you buy from S&B team has to be aligned with your needs and where you currently are as a law firm, right? So this is a challenge for us as a company with our comprehensive services model. Is we have a coaching business, we have fractional executives, fractional CFOs, COOs, we have our full service marketing business, we have paid ads, we have AI avatars we do on social media. So when a lawyer comes to us and the lawyer thinks they have, and this is something Andy speaks about till he's blue in the face, a lawyer thinks they have a lead generation problem, but they really don't. But because the salesperson just wants to attend to whatever the lawyer thinks their need is, sometimes we've had our sales teams sell products that the lawyer thought, oh, this is exactly what I need, but we didn't have the processes in place to slow down and say, wait a second, you don't need lead generation. You actually need a fractional CFO. And the way that bubbles up down the line is, misalignment, is we didn't solve their actual core problem, and that pops up somewhere down the line, right? So number one was alignment. Number two was ROI, right? Is every client of ours getting a ROI, and B, second component of that is them knowing they got an ROI, which really comes down to ROI tracking. Number three is proactive communication, right? They don't want to be hunting us down for updates. They want us to proactively force feed updates to them. And if you look at these principles, also the number four principle is they want their deliverables on time, right? So these four principles are almost like you could apply this to like the principles of a jump shot in basketball. The principles of the principles are never going to change. There's never going to be a circumstance where clients want a product from us that is not aligned with their needs. There's never going to be a circumstance where clients want less ROI from us, less proactive communication, and slower deliverables from us, right? It's just never going to happen. Now, to get to a place where I can, number these four foundational truths of what make our clients happy, right? For me to get to that place of simplicity took a lot of mistakes, to Andy's point, a lot of not doing those things and having clients complain about it, right? It took a ton of talking to experts. It took a ton of analysis and going down the wrong rabbit holes every now and then and focusing on the wrong things to basically know when I go to bed at night, alignment, ROI, communication, and deliverables are our four pillars of success, right? And if I were to sit down to, talk to, 100 law firm owners, most of them, if I said, what are the four foundational pillars of your law firm's product plan, or what it means to provide world-class legal service to your clients, most of them would go, just work hard, or da-da-da-da-da, because they haven't got to that place of simplicity. So it's all just mushy, general statements that aren't rooted in foundational truths, right? When you look at this that's kind of the client service side of the business. When you look at and by the way, how much does knowing our foundational truths, how much does that help you drill in when things go off track in your business, right? If I know that these are our four foundational truths and clients start complaining about this thing that's outside of the foundational truths, I'm going to go back, I'm going to look at the foundational truths first, because I know that it's a root cause of all client complaints, these four pillars. I have so much conviction in these four pillars that I'm not going to distract myself in shiny object territory, because if these aren't finished, then everything else is a distraction. So one of the things that Andy has done an excellent job with in our marketing and sales is focusing the team in on what matters the most, right? So there's pillars that, will never change, in our sales and marketing side, which is basically, one of them is budget attainment, right? So if we say we're going to spend X amount on marketing and we spend half of that, like that is like the cardinal sin of our sales and marketing strategy, right? Like you can't do that, because all the math breaks apart, right? What would you say some other pillars are, Andy? Like for me, I'd say like budget attainment, obviously from a data perspective, we want a high % of qualified leads, and we want a high % of the qualified leads to turn into either self-booked or, outbound booked appointments. And we want X% of those booked appointments to show up, And lastly, we want Y% of those appointments to become clients. What would you say within there?
Well, I think that for me, it's going back to this book that I read recently. It's one of the best marketing books I've ever read. And it's actually just like a pamphlet. It's called Obvious Atoms, right? And it's like, what's the obvious thing that needs to happen right now? So when I talk to our marketing team and I look at like, what is, it's like every time when our ads aren't working or something just isn't clicking, it usually comes down to something very, very simple, such as, like, here's a great example. Right now, we're working on a course that we put out. It's a free course that teaches lawyers how to handle all of their email in just 10 minutes a day. This is the same system I've used for like 4 years. And what's crazy is that the average lawyer spends 3 hours a day on their inbox every single day. That's 19 and a half weeks a year. At the average lawyer rate of like $250 an hour, that's $195,000 a year in lost productivity that you're sitting there in your email, right? And my argument is that 99% of email is not that important, right? So I created a course that shows you, it's a free course, completely free for lawyers. It's called Inbox Independence. And here's a course that shows you how to get that $195,000 back. Here's how to get out of your inbox, right? So I'm looking at and I know that lawyers want this, right? Because I've mentioned it on events and like the chat blows up. Like, yeah, I want that. So there's no doubt that people want it, but it's costing us way too much money. People just aren't downloading from the ads. It just doesn't make sense. So I look at the ads, and the ads I have this saying, clear over clever, right? Our ads are not clear over clever. They're not very clear as to who is this for, what is it going to do for you, and how do you get it, right? Or it's actually, no, first of all, what is it? What's it going to do for you? How do you get it? If those three things are not present in an ad, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to download it. And it's common sense, right? If I have an ad for something and I don't even tell you what it is, you're not going to click on the ad. It doesn't make any sense. Or if I have an ad for something and I don't tell you why you need it or how it's going to benefit you or even who it's for, it's like, it's not going to work, right? But a lot of times we zoom so close in and we're so close to our stuff that we know what it is, and we forget that people don't know what we're actually advertising, right? So lawyers, for example, do the same thing. They talk in this like industry jargon often where people just get confused because lawyers read at a collegiate level and the average American reads at an 8th grade level. So it's like sometimes we just have to be very, very clear instead of clever, right? So for us, it's always looking at what's the simplest form of our messaging. One of my favorite marketers is this guy named Frank Kern. And the reason I love his stuff is because it's so simple. It's so basic. His ads like will say, if you sell stuff online and want to sell more of it, watch this video. It's like basically like, it's like you're talking to like a 3-year-old, right? Which is exactly what you need to how you need to talk to people, not in a, not in a like, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not saying it's like a negative way, but I'm saying derogatory or like condescending way, not in a condescending way. But it's important that you speak that way because a confused mind always says no. Mm-hmm. So if they're confused, they're just going to move on to something else, right? So that's a principle you have to understand. You have to understand that if they're not crystal clear within half a second what they need, what it is we have, who it's for, and what it's going to do for them, and this applies to any ad, not just our ad, then they're just going to keep scrolling. You know what I mean? So there's principles like that we have to really break down. But it's actually interesting. We just did a VSL for Attorney Assistant. We just created this thing. I was working with Ethan, and anybody that's listening, Attorney Assistant is the virtual assistant staffing company that we own. And I was working with Ethan, who's our partner in that business, and he's a personal injury attorney. And we just did we just created a new product that is going to be really, really cool. It's called the Case Maximizer. It's called the Case Maximizer system. And essentially what it is it's a system that allows personal injury attorneys to increase the value of their cases. And the way that you increase the value of your cases as a personal injury attorney, and remember, Ethan's worked at, $100 million firm, and now he has, what does he have, 5,000 cases of his own or something like that. I mean, he's massively successful firm. It's not, it's funny because when it boils down to it, the answer is you have to stay in better contact with your clients, right? Like you have to stay in touch with them and make sure that they're going to their doctor's appointments and make sure that they're taking their medication and make sure that they're getting you all their records and making sure, it's like, it's not like this crazy, like, groundbreaking new trial, FBI hostage negotiation method. No, it's just pick up the phone and call the clients and make sure that they're actually going to the doctors, that they're rescheduling if they missed appointments. Now, that's more complicated in practice than I'm just saying it. Obviously, it's easier said than done. And that's what the case maximizer system is basically we put a system in place that, we provide staff that actually takes on those very specific roles. But it's something as simple as staying in contact with your clients. Like, it's like that's the way to that's the way to make more money as a personal injury firm, because of the fact that you stay in better contact, you're going to get better, the clients you're going to get better client compliance, which means that the cases are going to settle for more. You're going to get bigger verdicts because the jury and, there's more evidence that the injuries are actually real. The clients are going to be happier because they're getting better results. So they're going to leave 5-star reviews, which is going to give you more visibility in Google, which is going to give more people who see your Google business profile and they're researching, they're going to see their stories because they have more 5-star reviews. So they're going to have a higher perceived likelihood of achievement that you're actually going to be able to get them results. So that's going to increase your conversion rates. They're going to give you more referrals, and it's like a big snowball effect. But it all comes down to this simple thing of we need to talk to our clients more and make sure that we're actually staying in communication with them on a regular basis. And that's what I kind of mean by the simple thing. It's like, how do we get more, how do we get more reviews? That's the number one thing. I talk to law firms all the time. I can't get reviews. Well, how often do you ask? And it's like, well, you just ask. If you ask, you will receive. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes, and I'm guilty of this just as everyone else. You know what I mean? Because with our businesses, it's very, very difficult. And that's why it's essential to have a mentor. Because how many obvious things have we just completely missed just because of the fact that we're so close to it? Where if a lawyer was talking to you about their law firm or someone else who's trying to say, I need to grow my business, I'm having this problem, we always have an answer for it. And the obvious things always right in front of us, but we can't see it for some reason.
I think that's why we invest so much in coaching consultants is, we know what we don't know, and we understand that our blind spots are the biggest expenses in our business. The things you don't see are the biggest things robbing from your bank account, robbing from your future, because if you could see them, first of all, if somebody else built a firm that's 10 times bigger than you in your same practice area, they know something you don't know. And if you're not practicing what they know, that's a blind spot, right? Unless you don't want a more successful firm, that's a completely separate problem. But assuming you want a more successful firm, someone else has done what you're doing in a similar practice area. Someone else is doing what you want to be doing in a similar practice area and you're not doing it. It's a blind spot, right? I mean, just let's call it what it is. And it's so funny. It's like when we had our team in here, we were training them. I was talking to them about what is the actual core problem of all problems that causes a law firm to not grow, right? And, it's a fascinating concept and, it's lead generation, it's this, it's that. But the actual foundational truth is that it's the owner, right? But we can't start all of our sales calls just saying, hey, you want to know why your firm's not growing? You're deficient.
You suck.
You can't do it currently. But that's kind of the truth. I mean, because if you could do it, you would have done it. And your current identity and the blind spots within it and scar tissue and past experiences or lack of past experiences, which, by the way, I think is even more of an opportunity cost. If you've never experienced success spending $100,000 a month on marketing and seeing breakthrough results from it, then you're not going to have the belief that marketing makes me money. You're going to have the belief that, oh, I'm scared of marketing. I've never had success there. Lack of experience is a huge blind spot. But one thing I think is really important on what you're talking about regarding simplicity is how do you remove stuff from your calendar, right? So there's really two things, and our new manager who is at the office, Steve, you're gonna love him when you meet him. Did this training for everyone. I was taking notes, man. This guy is Energizer Bunny. I mean, holy crap. We have like you said, like 20, 30 members of our team. You've been in our office in the Philly office in the conference room with the windows. And we're all in here. Like, this is the first time he's going to present. It's his third day on the job. He walks in. Everyone's waiting. You know, what's Steve going to do? Steve comes in. He's like, just takes control. He's like, I want everyone to put your notebooks down right now. Shut your eyes. And I want you to picture how much money are you going to make in X, da 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 da. All right. Then he draws a list of on the left side of our big drywall whiteboard that we have in there. On the left side of it, he says money-making activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the right side, he wrote stuff, right? And what he was basically saying was, what are the high-value activities that you can spend time on? And then what's everything else? What's all the other stuff that doesn't provide any value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone starts calling out, right? Oh, this, that. And this was our sales team. So, they're like, making calls, doing follow-up, attending proposal calls, prepping for calls, right? Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start looking at stuff. It's like procrastination. It's like over preparing for calls and using that as a disguise to not make the next call because I need to prepare more, or talking yourself out of making calls because this person's going to reject your call, right? And what's really fascinating, once we all wrote down our money-making activities, I didn't tell you this, Andy, but then, Steve leaves, everyone's super energized, right? And I'll tell you what we did. We all quantified, this is with Steve, and I'll show you what we did after. So we quantified everyone's hourly rate, right? So we said, okay, you want to make X, so every hour to you is worth Y, right? So every time you don't take an action in an hour, let's say it's 2 p.m., you're tired, you have a pool in your backyard, you go take a dip in the pool. Well, you just basically lit $150 on fire, right? So every hour you don't take action to your full potential is ripping away from your annual salary, right? It's ripping away from, if you run a business, your legacy, the enterprise value of your business, what you're able to give your family, right? Okay, so we quantify that. And then I go into the room, Steve leaves, and we're all supposed to go to dinner. We had a team dinner. It's the last night before they fly out. And I go in and I say, so what do you think we all should do? Should we go to dinner now, or should we go book some appointments right now? Because we just clarified what the high value activities are. So everyone was like, book appointments. So I was like, all right, everyone must book an appointment right now, or you don't get to eat at dinner. Right? And then the first person to book an appointment, you get $500. Second person, $250. Third person, $100. And everyone else, third or beyond, gets $100. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, in 35 minutes, okay, we booked over 10 in the calendar booked appointments in under 30 minutes, Andy. 30. Okay?
That's
if
insane.
we did an hour, that would have been 20. If you did a whole day of that, okay, what's 20 times 8?
Yeah.
That's 160 appointments in a day.
160.
Okay?
Yep.
Why? Because they were productive for 30 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're productive for 30 minutes, you've proven to yourself you can be productive for an hour. When you've been productive for an hour, you can prove to yourself that. So, number one, like when we're talking about simplicity, this is the whole sports concept of be where your feet are, right? Like, focus on the next play. This is, if you look at like Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, which Nick Saban said this was the top thing he learned from Bill Belichick, was the next play mentality. I mean, it was so hardwired in everyone's brain. If you made a mistake on one play, You drop that and you focus on the next play. But the whole concept of this is really just presence. I'm going to remain in the present moment, and every present moment I'm going to give my best effort, right? So when you apply this to running a law firm and applying this simplicity of focus, oftentimes, people are treating their days as a mush of a variety of stuff. Mush of a variety of stuff, right? I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's all a mush, and therefore no real hour is as productive as it could be. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, when my calendar is filled with stuff, right, not money-making activities, when my calendar is filled with stuff, I'm going to have a lot of shit I need to focus on during a given day because I'm not saying no to things. I'm allowing any stuff to fall in, right? I'm accepting these as my responsibilities. And I think one of the things that allows someone to practice the level of simplicity you're talking about is, and they talked about this in a Harvard Business Review article on how CEOs spend their time. It was a article that went viral in the CEO community, and it's how CEOs spend their time. They studied all these very successful CEOs, and they found that the most successful ones had clear personal priorities, right? What does that mean? Well, when you run a company, the company, especially at a company of our size, there's, 15, 20, maybe 30 priorities all across different departments, right? So the marketing team's priority is this. The client service team priority is this. The priority here, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of priorities. But that doesn't mean all of those priorities are your personal priorities today, right? That doesn't mean you must individually focus on each of these things yourself today, right? So the key to high productivity that they found in this article is, it's a research project that took months and months and months and months, is that having clear personal priorities and knowing the difference between them and what's going on in the company was the separator. So if I know I'm only focused on two things, there's 100 other things going on here. There's 100 other stuff things that are in there. Email would be one of those, right? But I'm not doing those because my two money-making activities are BUP and BUP, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to let all this stuff be handled by others, right?
Yep.
So I think what's interesting is if you are unclear, your schedule becomes unclear.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true because I'll wait. So what I found is that so my morning starts the night before, right?
Yep.
So meaning that if I don't plan out what I'm going to work on before I leave my desk the day before, so meaning if I don't already have time blocked on my calendar what I'm going to work on tomorrow morning when I get to my desk at 5:30 in the morning, I will waste an hour, maybe 2 hours just kind of unfocused. Just click on here. Let me look at this. Oh, here's an article I'm going to read. But if I know coming into the morning that from 5:30 till 7:30 I'm working on this specific thing, then I'm dialed and locked in, right? But here's the other thing is that it's not just knowing that you're going to work on that, it's eliminating all distractions. So we're very similar in that we have all notifications. I have every notification turned off. Like I don't have social media turned on. I don't have any. The only people that can contact me, like if somebody texts me from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., the only people that those messages will come through are my wife, my kids, Emmy, right? My executive assistant, right? Because sometimes she'll text me and be like, hey, I need you to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, everybody else is blocked. And she knows to only text me if it's urgent, right? I don't have Slack notifications going. I don't have social media. I don't have any notifications on my phone. And then what I do, I take it a step further. I throw these on. These are noise canceling headphones. And I have a Spotify playlist that's rain sounds, right? So I do that. So I literally can do nothing but focus on the thing that I'm, it's like get rid of everything except for the thing that I'm focusing on. And that's how I do the best work. Because it gets you into flow state. Like flow state is a real thing. Flow state is when, you're really into something and, time flies by. Like you've been working on it for an hour and it feels like it's been 10 minutes. You take a sip of your coffee's cold, right? What's interesting about flow state is that that's the same thing that extreme athletes get into when they are, and I'm talking about like, like dirt bike riders and like skateboarders and stuff like that, when they're breaking these like crazy records at paces that no other sports are breaking records. It's typically a flow state that they're in. And the interesting thing about flow state is that you actually will increase your IQ points by about 30 points. You'll increase your IQ by about 30 points if you're in a flow state. So by not doing this, you're actually dumb. You're actually dumber when you're not working in a flow state. So, and the only way you get there is by simplicity. It's like you gotta get rid of all distractions, because every notification takes you out of it, right? Every time somebody comes in, knocks on the door, and you have to tell other people, hey, listen, I need to, I'm doing some deep work right now. I'm on airplane mode. Don't bother me. If you need something, let me know right now, because I'm about to go in there. And otherwise, I'll be available afterwards. Don't come talk to me unless the office is on fire, right? Yep. And it makes a difference. Like, the output of work is significantly better when you're doing that. I'm sure that you've experienced that as well. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So that's all the time we have today. I think for me, a big takeaway, we never really know where these conversations are going to go. Big takeaway is simplicity. One thing I'm going to work on as a result of this conversation is a little bit of removal. I think I have too many personal priorities right now, and I do think, if I were to rate myself on the simplicity scale, I would say the business priorities are pretty simple and clear. I would say I got to clean up a little bit about where I'm personally spending time. But yeah, this is good. We're like coaching each other on these sessions. So hopefully, if you're listening, you felt a part of the conversation. And as always, let us know if there's any topics you want us to go into in a future episode. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. What if you could take all of our knowledge and experience helping law firms grow and use it to create a custom growth plan for your firm? I want to give you something special. I want to give you a free law firm 360-degree analysis. We usually charge $499 for this call, but you'll get it for free since you're committed to growth. Our team will walk you through the 4 steps of the law firm growth acceleration model and give you opportunities and fixes to grow your firm faster based on what we've learned across hundreds and hundreds of the fastest growing law firms in North America. Go to smbteam.com/360 to get your free analysis today.